formal. Thank you. Well, the starting is not, no? Oh, okay, now yes. So thank you, Joshua, to be here with us. Thank you for coming this afternoon here in Italy. So we have the opportunity to speak and to meet Joshua Barnes, that is one of the earliest member of the DA community, one of the more valuable trainer and coach about DA, but not only about DA, about organization aspect. It's also one of my oldest friend about DA community, because we meet Joshua a lot of times ago when DA moved their first steps 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So we meet in this time, and Joshua will ask to us the new feature, the new incoming information about the value stream consulting, and in which way people can use these tools, these technique to support a company organization in the transformation journey, and especially what is the real importance of value stream for a company that want to move itself in the new dimension of organizational aspect, in adaptive aspect, to achieve their business agility, because we need to remember that our goal is not to become the better agile people in the world, but it's to find our journey to become a real business agility company that have the possibility to react to the change that the market presents to us every time in every part of the world, and for every type of company, not only for software company. This is very important. So thank you, Joshua. The stage is all yours.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I do have some slides that I'll get into in a few moments, but yeah, with you know, such a small informal group, let's just start off with a bit of a chat on it. So the value stream management consulting content and the value stream consultant, and then the value stream management approach in DA. Again, it came from the acquisition of Net Objectives, and it's something that organization, through Al Shalloway's leadership, had been worked on for, I think it was like 15 years. So lots and lots of big transformations, lots of work that they did between, you know, principles of lean and looking at theories of constraints, and lots of different bodies of knowledge that they used to create which became Flex. And Flex is the life cycle that's kind of at the value stream layer within DA now. And you know, one of the things that is a differentiator between Discipline Agile's approach to what a value stream is and one of the largest competitors, and definitely the biggest market share from an Agile perspective, which is Scaled Agile, is that value stream management in Discipline Agile only focuses on the system. It does not focus on the people, and that stays in good alignment with lean principles. Right. And what we're trying to do with that is shift the focus of management, shift the focus of leadership to improving the system that we use to deliver value to the customers. So a lot of what we're looking to do is focusing not on just identifying constraints, and I'll say constraints, not bottlenecks, but constraints, and then exploiting those constraints to be able to increase the flow that we have in our value delivery. Right? We have a lot of focus on the reduction of the cost of delay. So that's another big aspect that we're focusing on. So again, I have some slides that I may or may not pull up, but I'm going to try and kind of paint a mental picture for us all to kind of think through. And if you think about the typical organizational structure that we see at organizations, it is very top down, right? So we typically are going to have a president or a CEO, some executive at the top, and then we're going to have various layers all the way on down till we get to the teams, right? And we call this the inherent problem, and I'll say it's one of the inherent problems that we have. And so what we see is we see a very siloed approach to the way that, you know, a value stream starts with a customer and ends with a customer. So we have an idea, we have a need, we have a requirement that either the customer has surfaced and asked for, or our stakeholders and our subject matter experts in the various lines of business have identified. And so what we try to do is first take a look at this inherent problem in the way we go from an idea that is ultimately going to get implemented, right? It's going to be some new functionality, some new capability, whatever, and how it flows through the organization, because that is our value stream. And we might see it coming through, sales or marketing or, some business facing group. And then it might get all the way to the point where we're making an investment decision. So there might be a portfolio management process. And again, depending on if it's something that is obviously coming through, IT or, a technology support area of an organization. And the way that we manage and the way that we get approvals that are made, right? I mean, what we would see is that there's a lot of up and down, right? So down from the doer of work to some level of management approval or stakeholder approval or sponsor approval or whatever it is. And we see that every time we're waiting for an approval or waiting for possibly somebody to make a decision that doesn't have a lot of details of the context, it often is a fair amount of time that spans. So one of the things that we try to do with this inherent problem is bring awareness to, we're managing people in one way, right, top down. And we're seeing value flowing through the bottom of that, through the doers of the work. So that leads us into identifying what we call the idealized value stream. How we go from that idea and through, whatever the higher level roadmap type of information an organization has, right? So we might have strategic objectives, something that's part of a roadmap that's got like a 1 to 5 year time horizon. And then and so if we're going to do something, it should be able to map up to that, which a lot of times we are not able to do very effectively. And those strategic objectives or outcomes, typically we need a number of initiatives, and initiatives might span anywhere from 6 months to 18 months or something like that, a longer period of time, because we'll need lots of work that's done to satisfy an initiative, which rolls up to an objective, right? So one of the things that we're trying to do with this idealized value stream is be able to look at the smallest quantity of work. What's the smallest thing that we can do that's going to add value to the customer? And we get a lot of benefits out of a smaller batch size, right? We get a faster feedback loop, right? So we get feedback much quicker, both within the construct of a project and to releasing it to the marketplace to see how our customers are going to react to it, right? So we have quicker time from a feedback perspective. If we have smaller work, we oftentimes are not going to have as many dependencies, right? So smaller work, less dependencies. If we have smaller work, we can size it better, we can get it done quicker. I mean, most of the time, if we're going to do something that we can get done in 3 months versus 2 years, right? We're going to be able to do that more effectively. So that leads into the minimum business increment, right? And that's a cornerstone of the idealized value stream and a very, very significant part of Discipline Agile's value stream management. The two sort of constructs from a scope perspective, the two primary ones that we look at coming through the value stream, is an MBI, a minimum business increment, the smallest thing we can do in total. And I'm gonna decompose. I'm gonna unpack this quite a bit, but the total amount of work that's needed to have value to the customer. And then we also have MVPs. I mean, we still need to innovate, maybe now more than ever. Even long-standing established companies, because of the era of COVID we're in, they do need to be much more innovative, right? So we have MVPs, right? We're going to test a hypothesis, see whatever it is that we might be able to do that we can productize or monetize, do something that we're going to get new customers, get a new revenue stream, keep up with some form of competitors, right? Those types of things. But it's the MBI for existing systems that really is a differentiator. Now, what an MBI is intended to do is not only include the scope of work that our development value stream is going to contribute to adding to that value. We have 4 types of value streams that we consider within the MBI. So we have our development value stream. And then we have our operational value stream. So we release something, it's got to be supported, and we have to have the operational side of that, right? What business processes need to change? What additional support needs to happen? Do we have field representatives or market representatives or other training, other people that need to be part of that? We also have what's called an enabling value stream, right? This is for things that we're not going to see very often, like do we need to acquire some new equipment? Do we need to stand up some new servers? Is it something where out in the field we're going to need a new point of sale device, right? Those types of things. And then we have our supporting value stream, other corporate areas like marketing and legal and procurement and those things. So by looking beyond just the scope of work that IT needs to do, we're able to get much better alignment on the cost and the effort to get something into the hands of our users, right? So think about this. We've probably all been in organizations where, some new capability is ready to be released, but we're potentially not able to actually push it into production because we don't have enough support available. Or worse, something gets pushed into production, right? One of the customers we worked with is a large financial institution, and they had lots of really good functionality that they were releasing in their systems, and you went into one of their branch locations, right, at banks, and they didn't have that side of the process figured out, and there was a mismatch, and it was a very dreadful customer experience. So what we're trying to do with identifying value streams and then looking for candidate improvements is the total picture of what it's going to take. Because if we're not ready to do the development work, we shouldn't start one of those initiatives. We shouldn't start working on this next increment of value we're going to deliver. We shouldn't start the development work if the other supporting areas aren't going to be ready at the point in time we feel are needed, because then we're going to have work that's aging, right? That's just sitting, or again, worse, it's released, and then it's a negative experience for our customers, right? We might be losing customers, or customers that are frustrated and maybe looking to a competitor for something that we have a portion of that's really good. We just didn't look at the whole support of what was needed, or the total amount of work that needed to be done to be successful. And that's a very different approach to what other value stream management and other frameworks in the industry does. So that's one part. So I'm going to ask you just kind of keep thinking about that. Like, okay, so we've got something we need to do, and there could be work that, yeah, it's very little impact to operational support. There's no enabling stuff. There's very little support. So we have lots of different scenarios we could consider. The other thing that we're trying to accomplish with value stream management is where we actually have a product that is part of a value stream that has lots of different dependencies within it. And the one I'm going to use just as an example that most people kind of understand, and Felice, with your historical perspective of computers, hopefully you'll know maybe more than I do, but let's take a look at the value streams that Microsoft has, right? So they currently have like Office 365, they've got Windows, they've got like the Azure stuff. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff they've got, right? So let's think about Microsoft Office for a moment. And if we look at the types of projects we might see, maybe there's new functionality for PowerPoint versus new functionality for Excel. So if I look at the very first time that we were going to see a capability like slide transitions or slide animations, the team or teams that were supporting PowerPoint would be doing that work versus some other types of canned formulas or functions within something like Excel, right? So that would be an example of an MBI where you might have one or more teams, but it's in a specific product, right? But what happens when you've got functionality that cuts across the products in your value stream? So something like spell checker or grammar checker, right? So if we're going to roll out spell checker and we're going to be able to use that in PowerPoint and Excel and Word and Outlook, well, each team, or maybe each one of the teams that's supporting those individual products within the Office suite, are going to need to do some work. But you can't roll out the functionality of PowerPoint until you roll out the functionality of PowerPoint, Excel, and Word, right? All of those products. So that's where we also use the minimum business increment. We're identifying within a value stream the functionality that might be cutting across products and cutting across teams to coordinate that. Because if we've got the PowerPoint team that can start working on spelling and grammar checker and they do their stuff, and it's just sitting because it can't be released until the other teams get their stuff done, and we can do adequate testing across the entire Office suite. well, then we might have an accumulated impact of time that's passing and work that's being done. And what happens if the PowerPoint team that got their stuff done, when we take a look at how it's going to be rolled out from an Office suite perspective, there's some changes, right? Defects that are found, or just changes in the way they want that functionality. The time it's going to take for either the PowerPoint team, which is hopefully moved on to doing something else, to go back and unwind some of what they did and figure it out, there's going to be a cost associated with that versus if they were all coordinated and doing it in the relatively same time period. So with an MBI, what we're trying to do is not only take a look at the development value stream and the operational value stream and the support value stream and the operational side, right? If there is any, right? I mean, more likely there'll be some operational, but the other two potentially. But we're also taking a look within those value streams and the work that needs to be done in total to be able to release that to a customer. And that's another very, very, very big differentiator. And I know that a lot of the organizations that the company I work for, that we've supported, they all have this challenge. They've all had where they've got updates that are being made, and maybe the PowerPoint team was funded because they've got a bigger budget. But what happens if Excel and Word weren't funded to do the same amount of work to get spelling and grammar checker done? Right now we have a conflict. We have a problem that we're going to need to solve, and we might have a lot of wasted time and energy and lost budget and things we can't get back. So we're trying to use the value stream management tools. There's a number of them, and I'm gonna go into some of those in just a moment. But we're trying to bring awareness to these types of scenarios that are very common with organizations. To say, this is how you can gain a lot of efficiency. This is how we can reduce cost of delay. This is how we can make better investment decisions. This is how we can make decisions that aren't just based on one area's budget, like IT. And we can take a look at, if we need a marketing campaign to be successful, do we have the budget for that? Do we have the budget? Do we have people that need to do that work to be available? Right? A large product company we worked with, that was one of their challenges. They would roll out, or they could roll out functionality in their direct-to-consumer product, but they oftentimes had their marketing area was typically behind a little bit, right? They just from a staffing perspective and investment perspective and all of that. And so we'd see good functionality released and nobody knew about it, right? Or there was very little awareness of it. And so, yeah, it didn't have a great return on investment. So we're trying to help management and leadership see that these are the things that we need to be very aware of, and this is how we need to make more informed decisions. So I've been talking for a little bit. So let me ask any questions before I get into a little bit of like how we identify we have insights in some of the challenges and we bring awareness, we do an assessment. But any thoughts?
Extremely interesting. What I think is that, you mean that there are tools that can give me opportunity to manage better the value of my company, right?
Yes, there are, and by tools, we're mainly talking about techniques and stuff that we can do, which we could implement in an actual tool, potentially.
Yes.
But we're a bit tool agnostic, so there's lots of, and I can talk a little bit about how we could potentially do that from a tooling perspective. But yes, we're trying to provide insight into how to make better decisions and be more successful from a value delivery perspective.
An issue that I have in my company right now is that it's not easy to split any project in small pieces, like user stories, and for this reason, maybe I can't understand in what way I can manage and I can improve my value. Makes sense?
Yes, and so stories are definitely a really, really low level, right? So I'm gonna take us up a little bit higher in the scope.
For example, what can you mean that? Yeah, the higher level is. Give me an example to understand better.
So A lot, not all, but a lot of organizations that we've worked with that are larger ones, right? What they'll do is they'll have an investment cycle where August, September, business cases have been submitted. They're all the lines of business are kind of trying to get as much money as they can for their projects for the next year. And you get into, I don't know, September, October, decisions are made, which projects are going to be done. You get into January, a bunch of projects are kicked off and you kind of off and running, right? And so what I find a lot of times is that based on what the stakeholders are asking for, and if we've got, projects that run a fair amount of time, let's say 6 to 12 months, right? They're going to pack a lot of stuff into those projects. So an example might be from a feature perspective, we've got a project for 10 months for the PowerPoint team, and they're going to do some new slide transition stuff and some new animation, maybe some new little elements, and spelling and grammar checker. So the spelling and grammar checker features that are going to be the same in the other products are also part of that project.
Yes, it's a feature that can be in common with many projects, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, but the first step is that I should write down in all projects the feature in the same way. So I have to identify this feature.
Yeah, you do.
So I think it's not easy, right? Maybe you have a standard that can make it happen, but in my company it's not the same, right? Because I should write down.
And all companies are different. Yeah. So whether it's a feature, it's a super big epic, it's a capability, somewhere you've got to have something that says the stakeholders want this, bunch of bullet statements, this, right? Whether it's bullets or it's paragraphs or it's some amount of context you've got. Hopefully it's not just a note card or a napkin, right? You got something. So what I'd say is the first step in when we're doing our assessment and then we identify some of the candidate areas like this is we would want to take a look at, okay, what do you normally have? Like, let's take a look at some of those business cases, or let's take a look at when the projects got done with capturing whatever amount of information the projects we're going to start with, not when the projects get into doing, requirements up front or whatever, if they're doing a waterfall approach. And to see if there's a way to just at least spot the capabilities that are part of those projects. And what I like to do is lay those out and say, in a value stream, are there some common functionality that's being done, or is there functionality that's not going to be the same in every product, but from a customer journey perspective, you have to have this bit done and then this bit done and this bit done, or the customer's just not going to get any value. And so you're mapping those types of capabilities. And then to bring awareness to it, you can circle it, right? If I have this all up on a whiteboard, or I use something like Miro, a virtual collaboration canvas, then what I'll do is I'll show, look, here's how we could carve out a small chunk of each one of these projects. And this is an MBI. This is what's needed to be done across all these products. And maybe it's 4 of the 10 products in your value stream or this product line we're looking at. But if we do this, and we could do this in 3 months and get it out, we can still do the other stuff. And maybe some of the other stuff, again, is independent just for a particular product. But for the ones that are either cross-cutting and similar, or the ones that you need to have done across that value stream, or a customer's just not going to get value from what you're rolling out, then at least we have options we can talk about with leadership. And it's not just that functionality from an IT perspective, a system development perspective. It's what are the other things that, because maybe in the PowerPoint team, and again, I'm going to keep using the Microsoft example because it's easy, but maybe one of our products, you don't need a marketing campaign, you don't need anything else, because maybe it's a back-end system that's just feeding some information. But maybe one of the other teams that's working on one of their, another product, they need something that's more customer facing. And if that's not going to be able to be coordinated and done, we're just not going to be very successful. And again, I'll give you one other example. This, from a product company perspective, they were releasing a new direct-to-consumer portal. And part of what was going to be delivered to the customer through this shopping experience was they were going to some of the marketing platforms to pull very specific customer review, expert reviews of products, So it was just an information feed. So the marketing platform had to be enhanced to be able to provide that feed. But we didn't need like we didn't need a lot of other supporting work to be done. But the direct-to-consumer portal, where this was being released to the customer, that needed a whole marketing campaign. They had brand ambassadors, and I mean, to make sure that everybody knew, look, if you're looking at, it was for their very, very high-end, very expensive product, right, that they were trying to get. It was a very special VIP program. They needed a fair amount of marketing support to be able to do that. So that's some of what we're trying to accomplish with the MBI, is looking at the total investment that's needed, the total capacity of the resources to achieve outcomes. And we want to identify some of those outcomes, right? And again, the outcome isn't, hey, the IT team delivered their stuff. Well, we were within budget and we were within our time frame. We all get a gold star. It's, you know, did that outcome generate, you know, a certain level of revenue on a monthly basis? Did that new functionality in total, you know, increase the frequency of transactions from our customers, right? Whatever the outcomes are that we're making an investment decision to go ahead and move this work, or is it we're not losing customers, right? Hey, we're starting to see we're losing customers and some of our competitors are growing. So how can we, you know, either reduce customer acquisition costs or reduce customer attrition? Right? So whatever the outcome we're looking for, that's a basis for what we're capturing in the MBI, at least for the way that we help organizations with this construct, to really look at what we're trying to accomplish, really look at what it's going to take to accomplish that, and then look at the timing of when all of the people are going to have the right level of capacity, because we want them to pull the work versus obviously pushing the work on them. We don't want to say, hey, it's January, get this project going, right? We've probably all been in situations where it's like, hey, you know, you talk with, you know, some of the senior leadership, executive leader, hey, it's March, you know, in January we kicked off 149 projects. I like to ask, how many have completed? None. You got a problem, right? We're in March. You have all this work. You've kicked off all the work you're going to do for the whole year, and none of it's going to be completed until like November, which probably means February of the next year, right, or longer, right? So those are a lot of the things that we're going to be able to provide value to organizations as part of the VSC, the Value Stream Consultant Program, and what VSCs are bringing to value stream management. I mean, I want to say it's almost like the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, that's like the 20-ish minute overview of what we're trying to accomplish. But for me, that's a huge part of it.
Can we make this with just a person that can manage that, or we need a team?
Depends, right? I mean, I should say it's based on the context of a given organization. I have an organization I'm working with that, in comparison to our other customers, is very small, right? Maybe 100 people in IT, 100 people in IT. So pretty small organization. So we're identifying a value stream manager. That individual, more than likely, at least initially, will be able to work within, right now they're organized by product lines. So multiple product lines, identify some of the areas for improvement. You know, one of the other customers that's got thousands of people in IT, one person for one area to see if we can make some progress. Sure. One person that's going to hit a large coverage of the organization. No way. This is too much. Now, that's an excellent question though. We start off with doing an assessment, and the assessment is based off of what we call insights. And, you know, out of the box, the Value Stream Management, the Value Stream Consultant Program has 37 insights arranged around this idealized value stream. So it goes from portfolio management to product management to having a queue in between product management and the development intake process. And then we get a development and operational, you know, deploying and everything. So we have insights, which are a good starting point for common improvement areas for organizations. They don't have they have an intake management process, but only 50% of the work goes through it. People, stakeholders, managers are just pushing work onto teams. They have a very rigid and old style of doing agile, budgeting, right? So we want to bring them a little bit into the agile budgeting, lean funding kind of mindset. Some things in the development area, right? We've got teams that are adopting Agile. They've been using whatever Agile framework, but they're really kind of hybrid, right? Waterfall-ish, Agile fall, Scrum, but whatever we want to call it, right? So there's these insights, and there's 37 of them that DA has as a starting point. We have a number of other ones that we've identified that we use with our customers, and then for every customer, we identify some new ones based off of just the pre-engagement work. Like what are you trying to achieve? What are some of your bigger problems? So we use that to create an improvement backlog. And the improvement backlog is the way that we identify a value stream. We identify candidate improvements for the value stream, and then we get going with a transition plan. Now, one of the discussions I've got going this week, so Al Shalloway and Steve Tendon and I, we've got a weekly webinar series that we do called Uncommon Sense. This week, we're actually talking about agile transformations, where they typically start, where they could start, and what options we've got. So one of the things that we're going to talk about this week, and one of the things that we cover in the VSC course, is most transitions begin improvement just at the team level. Hey, let's pick a pilot, let's pick some early adopters, and let's make some progress, get some coverage. Oh, we're doing pretty well. Boom, the whole company's, all of IT is now going to be agile, right? But we often, like I have a customer that I supported last year that they had been using one of the prevalent agile approaches in the industry. And they really were more of that Agile approach. It was still mostly waterfall. They knew they needed to do better. Right. And so through looking at how those teams were functioning, the bigger issue was that work was just piled on top of the team. I mean, they would try and go through and create, and say, okay, in this next 3-month period, this is what we're going to do. And that might take them 7, 8, 9 months. And then it looked really bad because they weren't getting anything done. But they just constantly, it was like every week there was new things that were being brought to them. So what we ended up needing to do is functioning on their intake management process and saying, this has got to stop. Like we can make the teams more effective, but are we making the teams more effective to just deliver less valuable work quicker, right? Because their intake process was non-existent. So one of the things that we do through the assessment process, one of the things we do is we look at candidate improvements, and we don't say we have one place we can start. We can start making some improvements with our Agile teams or teams adopting Agile. We can make improvements in that product management area, right? Having a good intake management process. We can make improvements in DevOps and how we operationalize things. And we're looking for things like, what's the culture of the organization? How much change can any one of these areas actually be successful with and be persistent, right? We don't want to see, oh, we've got some great teams and change came about and then they just reverted back to what they used to do. How much money do we have? I mean, investment is a huge component of training and coaching, and really to make progress, we need a certain level of investment, both internal and external support. So we have a number of factors that we take into consideration to come up with minimum viable changes, right? What are the minimum viable changes we might want to move forward with? And then just like the MBI, what's an MBI for our improvement changes? What do we need to do across some of the areas in our value stream so we really see progress building as we get further along in a transition timeline? And I can say personally, I've been part of a number of these transformations for, spanning back before DA, when it was like rational unified process work, where you're very focused on improving a team or teams, but there's so many other things that aren't taken into consideration, right? And that's what we're trying to bring awareness to leadership in management from a value stream management perspective. And that's, I think, why value stream management is starting to get more and more awareness in the industry. We're seeing more things like this, more webinars on it, more discussion about it, more. I mean, PMI through DA has now rolled out this value stream consultant program. There's a lot of promise to it.
we have a lot of work to do with a different company, because when we try to think and speak about these questions, these thematics inside different companies, we have a lot of doubt, a lot of I don't know how I can see, a lot of problems in discussing, only in discussing about this, not in apply this concept, but only in discussing. And this is a very, very true. I'm actually supporting a different type of company, also in automotive, in rocket science, in medical device, and the world is more complex than a software company, because we must we have more challenges related to not only non-physical artifact, because the software are not simple but are not physical, so we can change it. There is a lot of cost when we change something too late, but when we create, for example, I don't know, a rocket, when we create something physical, there is a lot of different questions. So I'm discovering in the since 2 years ago that a very big challenge is to create a value stream for different types of people, also in the development area. But for them, development are something very different, because a mechanical engineer is a very different person than a software engineer or a chemical engineer. So we needed to use the different types of value stream, in this case, the development value stream, to support these people to enhance communication between them. Because in my opinion, our first challenge is to create communication inside company. So this this aspect can also respond to the question of Lorenzo, how we can create the awareness about a feature, about the same feature for different teams, and so on. We need the MBA to create this alignment. This is, from my point of view, one of the most superpower of the MBA. So we can speak the same language. We can have the same goal. We can have a goal that is that match the interesting of the customer and the internal interesting, because we have not only the external perspective, the external overview of what we are doing, but also the internal one. So this is very, very important from experience, from my point of view.
Yeah, that's such a good point, in that, you know, with the MBI and looking at whether it's software and hardware, and then those coming together, and not only getting an understanding of what needs to be done, but how do we, you know, manage dependencies when we have to? How do we eliminate dependencies the best that we can? From a value creation structure, are there things that we can do to start to eliminate some of the dependencies? And in these complex situations, at least in my experience, there's always dependency management. But there are some that we more than likely could have some options to reduce. And there are some that we would be able to manage much better in using the MBI construct, because we're identifying all of that work, and that work is a package, right? And we've got awareness and visibility into it. And again, I use Miro. I use these, we use these virtual canvases now with almost all of our customers. Actually, now all of them. And being able to visualize a lot of this makes such a difference. And again, we could do it on a whiteboard in a physical location, but having it on a virtual canvas and being able to expand and have other information and know that everybody can get to it is very, very powerful. Like I said, it's a superpower.
Yeah, it's superpower. Yes. Also, you can use, for example, Lorenzo, the asset management blade to support you, ensure what you deliver, what you create inside your company. Right. Or in the past edition, it was the reuse engineer blade, but now in the new version, this blade was promoted to enterprise level. So, for example, this is a repository. We can just call it a repository, but it's a simple way to think about it. It's too much simple to think about it. It's but just to understand us, is a way to reuse everything inside your company and improve your ROI about your investment, and the way you can see what other people, other teams inside your company, what are doing, and you reuse it every time you can do that. So it's very important to use in my opinion, it's it's very important to use also all the blade of DA in alignment with the value stream management. This is very important. And Joshua, I have a question for you, just in this direction, because actually we discussed also about this in our advisory group. It's not so clear the difference between value stream consultant and the DA coach. So this is yeah, I know. I just discussed to you this just to discuss this with Lorenzo for his journey and for his question inside the chapters, because this is a typical question that coming from our for the people that subscribe the chapters, and they ask us, okay, but what is the difference and why we cannot take part to the DA coach workshop actually? So I typically try to respond to them, but please help us to respond to our friend here in Italy.
Yeah, that's a well, it's an excellent question, and I'll try and answer a little bit of what I think or what I know, and it is confusing, right? We had the certified discipline agile coach, which was somebody with a lot of experience, right? I mean, you needed to have good awareness all the way team level through enterprise concerns and how you would interact with executives, or how you might need to interact with procurement, because to get a team to adopt discipline agile that's using vendor support resources, you have to go and talk with vendor management and procurement and maybe HR or whatever. And now we've got the discipline agile value stream consultant, and the intent there and what's in the course, at least as it exists at this moment in time, is that if the chief transformation agent, that is again, we're talking about certifications, designations versus roles. And again, I think that it's not clear to everyone, and it might not be currently clear in the discipline agile body of knowledge, that we've got different levels of certification or different types of certification. It might be the same person, right? Like you're a CDA, or you're a CDAC, so you're a discipline agile coach and a discipline agile value stream consultant. So you're the same person, and you've got two different certifications, and you can provide a tremendous amount of potential value to your current customer or future customer or whatever. So what we're seeing, and what I'm seeing in the delivery of the value stream consultant courses, is it looks like it's a role, right? So the value stream consultant is a role that pairs up with somebody from an organization perspective that'll be a value stream manager, and we're looking at all these candidate improvements and working on a transformation roadmap and approach. But what about the discipline agile coach? So in the advisory group, this is a topic of discussion, and a very timely topic, right? So some of what I've seen, read, heard, whatever, is the coach designation is going to be to help to support really more of those coaching aspects, right? Everything from our team lead, right, a discipline agile scrum master, but the team level coach, to somebody with the designation of a senior scrum master, more complicated situations, supporting maybe multiple teams, maybe supporting a value stream, so all the teams within a value stream, or maybe it's all the teams working on bigger MBIs. And then you've got the discipline agile coach, that is another level up of experience, awareness of both what's in the DA toolkit and obviously outside of it, right? But definitely in the toolkit. And so would a value stream consultant get into helping coaching related aspects with the adoption or improvements? Maybe. Again, a lot of times it might be the same person, right? So I don't have a very good bit of insight as well. I think that there's still, and part of that is because the DAVSC course is out. The Discipline Agile Coach course is not out yet, right? So until that intellectual property is finalized and released, and all of the ATPs and all of the instructors that are able to teach it, we can see the content, we can get a better understanding of what it is. There's definitely still some uncertainty about that, but we know through the advisory group that the DA leadership is aware and is working on it, and hopefully what the result is it's very clear, it has very specific, value of each one of these designations. Now, one last thing I'll say is, I've worked on lots of transformations like you probably have, where it is a very IT, the PMO of an IT area is bringing an adoption of Agile. You're very IT, very delivery team focused, and the goal is really at least adopting Agile in that area. And as a experienced Agile coach, right, enterprise coach, whatever term out in the marketplace we'd want to put on it, that definitely is an area you can and still add value in. The DAVSC having more options in the coaching toolkit, right, is really looking at and understanding a lot of what I covered here, right? Hey, how do we go from an idea to giving value to a customer, and what are all the things that we might need to make improvements on, and how do we do that, and who needs to participate, and in the product management area, not only do we need product managers, but we need some capacity from product owners and architecture owners, because they need to be the subject matter experts the product owners are looking at when we're identifying and getting an MBI to the point where it's ready to potentially implement or put into the queue, so that when we have the capacity that's needed, the teams can now pull that work and begin working on it. So it's a difficult question to answer at this moment in time.
We can define that the very consultant can be something like the oil for simplify the throughput of the initiative through the value chain to the value stream. It can be just some metaphor that we can use to explain better. It's something like that, promote the flow inside the value stream. And so
well, we use value stream impedance, right? Just like we see impedance in electrical connections, right? What's the impedance factors that is providing resistance to that flow of work, right? And how do we identify that and make improvements there? So that's another, but oiling for the flow of work. Yeah, that's another very good visual. I'll keep that one in mind.
Okay, I don't want to stall you more time, Joshua. So it was a great conversation between us, between our champion, our Lorenzo, our friend Lorenzo, and I hope that we will have more time to discuss with more people in. I imagine autumn, in November and December, when people stay at home because it was too cold here to go outside. Now it's time to go to sea, and it's time to go outside the home after the pandemic situation.
Next lockdown.
Well, you let me know at the time where it might be a little bit better for attendance, and I'm happy to come back anytime. And I love talking about this stuff and helping organizations with it. So I'd be happy to come back anytime you want me to.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joshua. Grazie, Lorenzo. Thank you, Lorenzo. And I hope that we will see soon also in advisor, in other time, at the conference. Okay. Thank you so much to both of you.
You got it. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye. Have a good time. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.